Hi guys, it's Wednesday. That means classic rock on Waxing On. And today we're going to look at a fellow who, again, developed a very unique style of his own in the late 70s, early 80s. I only have two of his albums, but they kind of were at the height of his popularity at this time. And this is Gary Numan we're looking at. Gary Numan kind of pioneered something called electronic music. A lot of pre-programmed music, a lot of use of synthesizers. And you'll see when we get into the actual band, they don't really have a very large band for him. One of the first albums I got was one called Replica. And this is when he was fronting a band called Two Boy Army. Now again, Gary Numan, an English performer. This band, we got Gary Numan on vocals and keyboards, and very heavy on the keyboard and synthesizer. Paul Gardinier on bass, and Jess Lydiard on drums, and that's the band. Probably the biggest hit out of here are a song called Our Friends Electric. And he had a very unique style. Now, I found what happened over the two albums I listened to, that a lot of it kind of sounded very similar. And I don't know how it translated when you went to concerts. Because I know I had a friend of mine went to a concert by the Cars, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will in a couple of weeks. Great band, great couple of hits, but he said, you know, once you got there, everything kind of sounded the same. There was no excitement, no fire. I mean, the time I went to see Bob Seger in concert, there was lots of excitement, lots of energy. Some of these other bands, and again, maybe with Gary Numan, I felt that way too, there was not that much energy out there. It was a different style of music. It was a pre-programmed synthesizer sound, very unique, very interesting, but not the same energy that some rock bands generate. Now, Gary's second album, and this is when he went solo, one called The Pleasure Principle. And this is probably where a lot of people really became aware of who Gary Numan was. And the big hit off this album was one called Cars. And most people would recognize that. If you pull it up online, you're going to know the tune right away. The albums, again, this one, Gary Numan, Paul Gardinier on bass, Christopher Payne on keyboards, so he brought in another keyboard player and viola, and Cedric Sharpley on drums. Very small group, great for touring, I'll tell you. But again, when I list off all the songs, if I put them down, Tracks, Observer, Conversation, Cars, Engineers, you're not probably going to recognize a lot of the titles. Cars, obviously the big hit, and was getting a lot of airplay, and really brought Gary Numan to the attention of a lot of listeners. Now, I was watching an interview the other day with Gary Numan. This was back quite a while ago, and he was talking about his first tour, and he was in Toronto. And he went to a club in the evening after they'd done rehearsals and saw a group or a band, actually it was an individual, who was doing kind of similar things with programmed synthesizer sounds and music that really appealed to him. And he said right then, he let go of the opening act he had already booked for his tour. So these guys are already booked in. Basically, he fires them and hires this guy on the spot. This is a guy he wants opening for him. He's just blown away by what he's doing and how much it fits in with his style of work. A local Toronto musician getting to open for a major act at this point, and again, bumping off who he already had in there. Who was it? Hey, it was Nash the Slash. We've talked about him before, and surprisingly, his album, or the show we did with his albums, are doing quite well, considering Nash was not a household name. But Gary Numan fired his opening act, hired Nash the Slash. Now, I just had another little Nash story that I came across as I was researching the Numan one. Nash the Slash opened for another major act at a club called El Macambo in Toronto. And this is a very famous club. Probably most famous for the fact that Rolling Stones showed up one night and just did an impromptu concert there. And really, people were blown away by the fact these guys came into a little club and, you know, did a show for them. Certainly unannounced, great surprise for the people that were in attendance that night. Anyways, Nash was opening for Elvis Costello on one of his first tours through. He was playing the El Macambo. And I don't know if we mentioned it during Elvis's episode, but there was a release, very hard to find. I found it in a box set, Elvis Live at El Macambo, and it probably was taken material from the first two albums. Anyways, Nash had opened for him, but because they were getting big crowds all of a sudden, the fire marshal's office made rulings that you couldn't stay in the club unless you had a seat. There was no standing room only. You know, you had a chair or you were out the door. And after Nash did his opening act, they were waiting to watch Elvis, and no chairs left. They had to basically evict him or ask him to leave. And he's joking about how he got kicked out of his own concert at the El Macambo. So again, he was opening for Gary Numan. He was opening for Elvis Costello. He was certainly making a name for himself. But his style was something that really, I guess, blended quite well with what Gary Numan was doing with the synthesizers. Boy, I'm having a tough time with that one today. And pre-programmed music. Anyways, worth checking out. A couple of albums by Gary Numan with Two Boy Army. We got one called Replicas. And Gary's first solo album, The Pleasure Principle. Okay, hope everybody's doing well. We're at hump day here, halfway through the week. We've only got a few more days to go. Halloween coming up on Sunday. Everybody, thanks for stopping by. Take care. Stay safe. We'll see you on Friday.